TV audience.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't know until you see it. I looked at it earlier this morning on C-SPAN,
Yeah.
which these kinds of events, from what I have found out, that C-SPAN is actually the bigger audience.
Well, and they're the best place that you get clean.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, for TV, that's what
Yeah.
we usually go to C-SPAN
Right.
because we can pull clean
Because the
video.
whole thing's there, yeah.
Yeah, and it's clean. There's not like
Because a lot of
yellow
people were
news.
telling me last night that they just went to C-SPAN. They just said, hey, I was watching Fox, I was watching CNN or ABC, and they just said,
Yeah, the
you know,
best
'cause
place.
they're like analyzing Melania's, which is a tough
Yeah, that's
one
a
to
tough
follow.
thing
So
for you.
anyway, okay.
All
So
right.
we don't. So we
Okay.
have just a little bit of time.
Okay,
so
so
maybe,
let's. Okay.
maybe 15 minutes or so.
Okay, so quick background. Can you give everybody a quick background? We have General.
Are we on?
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
on.
okay.
So let's. We've got General Mike Flynn here, and we're
Okay.
in Cleveland. So just a really quick military background.
Okay. I have Lieutenant General Mike Flynn. I served just over 33 years in the military, mostly in the Army, and my final job was the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, which is the Defense Department's intelligence system, essentially. And I was also the senior military intelligence officer for the U.S. government for my final 2 years. So, and I've served, you know, a whole range of operational assignments. Also, about approximately 5 years in combat in the last 10 years, mostly in Iraq and Afghanistan. So,
Okay. The Middle East is a mess.
Yeah.
Any simple solutions?
no, I mean, no simple solutions, and no solutions that are going to be over by dropping a couple of bombs. One of the things we have to come to grips with is we and frankly the international community have to really focus on discrediting the ideology. That's number two. Number one is recognizing exactly what it is, which our current administration, President Obama, does not allow us to do that, in the government at least. Well, the use of the word radical Islam or the phrase radical Islam is not allowed in government. So,
Well, let's draw
Yeah.
on that for just one
Yeah.
moment. And you've been over there, you've served in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Now we know that these terrorists, do they respect that President Obama is being politically correct, or how do they take
they laugh
that?
at it. It's laughable, and many Muslims that are actually trying to help also see it as a disservice to them, because they see it as hey, don't treat us like children. We know what it is. This is a cancerous, barbaric form inside of our bloodstream, and we know it has to be rooted out, but we need the United States to help. So, the number one is to clearly identify it, clearly define it. Number two is to really begin to work on discrediting it, discrediting the ideology, just like we did against communism or fascism last century.
And would that be by doing something like a Radio Free America and
Beyond that, I mean the Islamic State, and then previously to that, the al-Qaeda offshoot, al-Qaeda in Iraq, they're on I think it's number 14 of their magazines.
Mm-hmm.
So this Dabiq magazine, they have a daily TV show or a daily media event that's called al-Amaq. Al-Amaq is like their headline news. It's like their CNN.
Okay.
They put it out every day. So it has to be in a different form. Radio Free Europe is in the way that was done, is something in the past. It's it was useful, last century. This century is much different. It has to be a different form of warfare. In the book, I talk about Facebook and Twitter, and what in some cases what they're not doing. And I think that they can do a lot more. It has to be a very positive message positive in a way that shows this ideology for what it is and what it is not. That's sort of number one. The third component is to create what I describe as a new 21st century alliance, and that alliance would consist of Muslim nations, because we're not going to get Iran to play fair. So this is where Russia comes in, because I talk a lot about Russia in here, and Russia's sort of I'm very uncomfortable with Russia and what Russia's doing. I've been told the Russians that they have to get Iran to back out. But this 21st century alliance is an alliance where you bring the Muslim nations together, the leaders. So like President al-Sisi, out of Egypt, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which is Mohammed bin Salman.
What about
King of
countries
Jordan.
like, what about Indonesia? I mean, a lot of
Indonesia
people
too.
leave that out.
Yeah, Indonesia too. Singapore is actually doing some good work. Indonesia must be brought into this as well. So essentially from Indonesia to Morocco, but there is a tighter shot group where these nations are willing to provide capabilities. They're willing to provide boots on the ground, but they don't know how to organize themselves. They don't know how to lead this type of a coalition. And in a way, if you were to use an analogy, it would be like a sort of an Arab NATO-like, organization. I mean, in a way. People understand NATO, but a new type of one. Yeah. And one where the Arab nations have to take some responsibility. They have to be held accountable. They have to step up to the plate. If they don't, and this is another part in the book where I talk about it. If they can't, then they shouldn't be punished twice. Once by the terrorists and once by us. We need to help them. If they can't do something, but they want to do something. If they can't do something about the problem internally, but they want to do something. Like
after the Nice attack in France, you called out the nations in the Middle East saying, look, they
say
need
something
immediately, otherwise you're either with us or against us, essentially.
That's right. In a way, that's right.
So, I mean, and I think that you took some flack on that.
A lot.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
And then, and during that interview, I also said that Germany was going to be attacked. And Germany just got attacked.
Yes.
So, because I'm not sitting inside of the intelligence system. I'm sitting just paying attention to what they are saying. And what they were saying was that Germany would be next. And lo and behold, here we have 17 people attacked with an axe.
Yeah.
On a train in Würzburg. So these nations, and it's not a matter of us more boots on the ground, because everybody's going, well, how many military, is it going to be? That actually, there are plenty of forces. Those forces have to be organized. But there are also conditions. So if you don't do it, if I tell you got to do this and you don't do it, and you just say, well, let us think about it. Well, then you know what? We're going to think about our economic packages that we have. We're going to think about our foreign military sales. We're going to think about our defense security cooperation. We're going to think about our foreign policy. We're going to think about all that. So how's that?
So there's plenty of ways to punish those countries without bombing them.
It's not punishing. It's to use a better word. It's reciprocity.
Okay.
Okay, reciprocity. So you want something from me. I need something from you. Okay. A little bit of a quid pro quo, but it's not. It's not. I give you some intelligence, and I want some intelligence back. That would be the perfect quid pro quo.
Yeah.
This is reciprocity. It is. I'm going to give you something. I'm going to give you a big economic package. I'm going to help you out with your, maybe helping build up your military if that's what you want to do. We're going to do some things because we want you to be a reliable partner for us in the future.
Okay.
But what we want is we want you to do something more. We want you to put your men and women in your country, in your neighborhood against these guys and start fighting this.
Okay, so I'm going to just kind of draw something out of old Ike, one of my favorite presidents, the military-industrial complex.
Yeah.
We seem to be giving our enemies, it seems, a lot of our weapons, and then we have to come out with better weapons to defeat the weapons that we had given people.
Yeah.
How do you get out of that cycle?
Yeah.
Because I think that costs money, and I think the military does get a lot of money, and if it's better spent perhaps, or maybe we give them older aircraft and we keep this aircraft that we've got for another 30 years, whatever it may be. But I think that might actually, tell the American people a little bit about that aspect, because it seems like it's a revolving door there.
Yeah, I mean, we're in this place where, and I always, use the phrase, invest in stability and not in conflict. If you invest in stability, you're helping a nation. You are challenging a nation. So like Kuwait or the UAE or the Saudis or Egypt or any one of them. You're challenging them to take a hard look at their entire system, their entire ecosystem. Because if they want to have their religion, their quote-unquote religion, and they want to have their security, and they want to pretend like they have women's rights, and they pretend like they have everything's fine, then and I can tell you it's not.
Yeah.
So one example, and I don't want to say too much about this book, but one example I talk about in the book is in 2015, there were more books translated in Spain that year, in 1 year, translated into Spanish, than there were books translated in the Arab world for the last 1,000 years. Okay? So 1,000 years ago, the Arab world would have had all of the Nobel Prizes, science, art, peace. They had gotten them all 1,000 years ago. So what changed was this guy Muhammad comes into play, and honestly, we're dealing with a text that is ancient and not helpful, and a society that lives on that text, and it can't come to grips with modernity, with becoming modern. So the second thing is investing in conflict. So when you give somebody more weapons, instead of giving them some other means to help themselves, then what you're doing is you're really investing in conflict. Because especially in this region, because when you look at who it is that you're talking to or dealing with, are you sure you know who you're dealing with?
Yeah.
Because that's, to a degree, that's what's happened in the Middle East, where we're dealing with one, we're feeding weapons into one group, and all of a sudden they turn against us and they join the bad guys.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's where we saw, the weapons going through
Right.
Benghazi, through Qatar
Right.
first, then Turkey, and then on into Syria, and I think that's a big problem because now we're fighting our own weapons. So I think that's a big issue that is something, do you think that Pentagon can take care of?
No,
Or is that-
no. These are things. I mean, Pentagon would maybe do the mechanics of it. They might work the mechanics of how it functions. But this is really a bigger decision, because am I giving you a weapon, or I'm giving you a weapon for what end, for what purpose? So I give you something because I want you to do something with it. I want you to achieve something by whatever it is that I'm giving you. I want you to have an outcome. So what's the outcome? If I'm at a very tactical level, the outcome is a very tactical outcome. And that's all we are thinking about. We have no strategic thinking going on right now. What I would rather have is a real strategic discussion about what is it that we are trying to achieve. What are our overarching goals? Is it the defeat of radical Islam? It has to be beyond that. And this is where this alliance of nations, they have got to get their act together. Because if they don't get their act together, we will eventually go to a larger war. So we will have a larger war, and others will be consumed by that larger war, because we cannot continue to have these types of attacks and this installation of fear in the West.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question when you're talking about that. I know you were in the intelligence world. Now, there was a lot of talk that we saw ISIS leave Raqqa on the so-called Damascus to Baghdad highway.
Yeah.
Now, that would have been an opportunity to go in and bomb them like we did in Desert Storm, and no collateral damage. Why didn't we go and do that? I mean, we had intelligence of the Russians moving down to Crimea, and we did nothing. So, was that an intelligence failure, or was that a leadership failure?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we don't have really any. There's no coherence to our strategy. There just isn't. I mean, you're asking the $64,000 question, which is, what is it that we're trying to do? I mean, what is it that we're trying to do? And I really don't know. I mean, I pay. I wrote a book about it, right? I pay very close attention to it, and I can't sit here and tell you. There was a time when we had 9 lines of operation, and every line was supposed to be blended together, and it achieved some end state, which was, I think, the defeat of radical Islam. But it really didn't say that, because the president doesn't want us to use that phrase, radical Islam. So it's the defeat of what, or it's the victory over whom, you know? And that's where the President of the United States has done a disservice to the American public by confusing us.
But was there, let me get back to the Damascus to Baghdad highway, was there intelligence, was there a time when we could have literally gone after them before we got into this mess in Iraq?
Yeah, I think that you know, 4 or 5 years ago when we began to see the buildup of and frankly the violence that was increasing on the increase, especially in Iraq, we could have had you know, I'm not sure it would be a different outcome than it is today had we moved more smartly when we knew the situation was beginning to unravel. Would there still be a problem? Likely. Would it be as bad? Probably not. The worst decision was to pull out of Iraq in 2011 anyway.
Yeah.
And it was just a terrible decision. I mean, you can't have victory and then, or if you, better way to say this, if you achieve victory in warfare, you have to sustain that victory. Now you can sustain it in a very benevolent way by continuing to train the indigenous forces, you know, the Iraqi forces in this case. You can train their law enforcement professionals, you can help work with their government, but you can't do that with 100 guys, which is what we ended up with, about 175 people. And so, you know, at the time it was roughly 10,000 was the number that was requested to stay there. Everybody around the president pretty much said, you know, we recommend this is the right number. And the president said, you know, with some of his other little cabal advisors, advised him incorrectly, and it's done damage, further damage to the Middle East.
Okay. And now let me just ask you on tactic. Now we know that these jihadis, you know, they only respond to force, and you know they like you were saying, they laugh at us, so they respond to force. What about some sort of demonstration bomb, if you will, maybe in Afghanistan where the poppy fields are?
Yeah.
Something for them to wake up and go, wait a minute, the Americans really do mean what they're saying, because it seems our word is shot. The red lines in the sand and the not following.
So now, you know, now you're maneuvering or walking into the world of information operations. And what are the right things that we can do? How good is our imagination, right, in the world of information operations? And how can we be effective in that world? Because the dropping of a bomb is also a message. It sends a message. You know, the parking of an aircraft carrier off somebody's coast sends a message. So how do we think about how imaginative and creative can we be when we're trying to send a message in other ways? Maybe dropping a bomb is an effective means. You know, you'd have to examine that.
A lot of people are saying Raqqa. That might be a little too populated, but I mean, it just seems that, you know, and I know with the internet, the images would be horrific, and I know the blowback. So I mean, this gets
into the debate of civilian casualties. Well, we got women and children there. So there are options that, I learned this when I was a lieutenant in the Army, from military, but I think it's also works in business. The best plan gives you the most options at the last possible minute. And right now, we don't have the best plan. We don't have the best plan. We don't have a plan. Or we have an ineffective plan, or a very narrow and tactical plan. So that means you don't have an array of options. Because again, this conversation is about examining options to defeat and discredit the ideology, as well as to influence these guys to get off the battlefield or to stop doing what they're doing. Otherwise, there will be a consequence. There will be a consequence.
So it's a possibility that's out there. I mean, I understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
horrific, difficult choice.
Yeah.
But had we have made decisions earlier.
But you know, when
and
a guy's wielding an axe on a train and he went after, you know.
How far does this go? We see Nice, we see Belgium, I mean, it just,
I mean, you saw, I don't know if you saw it, but the picture of the body bag, this is in Nice, the body bag of a child with a doll on the ground.
Yeah.
I mean, and these guys, their belief system is such that, one, you would be a piece of property as a woman. You're just seen as a piece of property. You're, you know, bought and sold, trade, whatever. You know, I mean, and don't get me into, you know, young girls and young boys what they do. But the other thing is that they are. You really only have three options if, let's say, I'm a member of, you know, ISIS. So I look at you and I say, okay, you're either going to be my slave. I'm going to convert you. That's option two. You're going to convert. You're going to become, you know, a Muslim and a true believer in Islam, in their belief system, in this radical view of it, this very misinterpreted view of it, or you'll be killed. Those are that's it. There's no other way out. No other way out. And sadly, the women that were seized by these guys in Iraq and taken back into some of these villages. I mean, some of the women that a couple that did escape, and they've been interviewed and debriefed. They have said they would you know had they not escaped, they were probably going to kill themselves.
Yeah, I've seen.
Because death was better. In fact, they wanted in one case, because this was a priest, a Catholic priest from France that goes down and does this NGO thing with these women, these Yazidi women who have escaped. Really an amazing guy. He told me that some of the women were, when they heard bombs, they were like hoping that the bombs fell on them because they just wanted to die because of what was happening to them. You know, now that's unbelievably sad.
Yeah, well, they trade. I've interviewed an Iraqi girl, and they actually have like a driver. You know, like when you sell them a car, they have like little pieces of paper, and they buy and sell them like you said they're the property.
Right.
It's. I mean, so how long? I mean, these are the images I think that perhaps, and maybe you agree that the American people, the media needs to get the story out about what these women are going through, and maybe they'll have a little more.
So I mean, this is where I have a problem with Hillary Clinton as well, because. And I've caught grief for this too, because we've had female engagement teams on the battlefield that'll wear a headscarf. We've had Condoleezza Rice wore one, Madeleine Albright probably wore one. Maybe Margaret Thatcher wore one, but Hillary Clinton wore one. When we have a female Secretary of State, it's much different than a female engagement team member that's out walking, doing a patrol with some Marines, because they're engaging in a different way, totally different way, and it is about safety and security. Whereas if you have the Secretary of State of the United States of America that basically accepts a form of personal wear that the women have been forced to wear in that society for a long, long time. So they don't even know they're forced to wear it anymore. It's just a part of their lives. I think that symbology, symbolically it is something that is against our values.
It says we're submitting to their way of life.
Yeah, I mean, why not walk around like a proud American, and you're the Secretary of State, and that's Condoleezza Rice. I mean, if there's other pictures of other, Secretary Albright, these are smart women. But what it is you are so visible, and you're going to probably be in some newspaper clipping, and you're going to be wearing that.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, I can tell you that because I know women in the Middle East, and they, inside the room, they will tell you a completely different story than they will when they're out there in the sort of the formal setting. Yeah. And it's not good. It's not good for us to do that.
Well, in this country, they're wearing them more and more here, and I have no problem if you're in the mosque or in your church. I mean, when I go to the Vatican, I cover up, and it's respectful in a place of religion. But outside, we all wear what we're going to wear, and in this country, it seems
people can wear what they want. Yeah. These women can wear what they want, but it gets back to the society in general, this culture in general, and it's another thing that I lay out in here about. The way we view cultures in the world too. I mean, in Iraq, right outside of where we used to fly our helicopters in and out of all the time, you would see during the day, you would see these women in full, I mean, all black, full, I mean, the whole thing, you know, the whole hijab, all the way down to their, you know, you can't even see their feet. And it would be like 105 to 115 degrees. And they're out in the middle of a field where the water that is running is these lousy canals, and the water's like this bright green because it's so polluted. And they're down there picking up, you know, grass from the ground, working their tails off. And you know that it cannot be, one, it can't be healthy, two, it's miserable. And when you see a man, the man's got a tank top on, a pair of shorts, and his sandals. You know, and so it's kind of like, there's a problem there. That's a problem. I have a problem with that. You know, if you want to accept that in your country, that's fine. If that's the way you want to live in your country, that's fine. But when you begin to export that way of life and you try to, you know, enforce that on our way of life, I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that. And I see it in some cases, not in general, but that is the radical Islamist ideology that we are facing, and it's very, it's so dangerous, and they do not like our way of life. I mean, these guys write about it, and they talk about it, and they act on it. They act on it.
So would you say that's the real war on women?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's absolutely. I mean, you know, this you know, phony, you know, war on women that you know has been made up. I mean, women don't need to be told whether they're in war or not. Women know what to do. I mean, so you know, you're like pandering to women. Why? You're making them feel stupid. You know, women know what you know. Believe me, I have 3 living sisters, and my mother was the strongest person I've ever known. They stood for no fools, and so. I just think it's sad that a large, at least 50% of the population in that component of the world is untapped for intellectual horsepower to be able to rise up and make these countries much better intellectually, economically, politically, from an education standpoint, all those things. So,
yeah. Okay, I have 2 questions for you. Okay, this one is kind of a little bit about Turkey, because we just had the failed military coup. I know there's a lot of people saying that Erdogan actually called for this military coup himself. He's kind of seems to be a wannabe caliph himself. I think he really doesn't like Baghdadi all that much now. Personally, I know that Turkey's a member of NATO. What kind of problem is this going to present now? How is this going to complicate matters?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that it shows really the type of relationship that we don't have. So, you know, I think we don't have as strong a relationship with different leaders in Turkey. It's interesting that we did not know about this. I mean, maybe we did, but it's interesting that from what is coming out, but the strength of the relationships is one of the weaknesses right now, with the United States not showing, you know, sort of a global leadership role. The effects of this are going to be long-term. So they're going to be long-term. Erdogan, I don't know how much you're tracking the numbers of military purge, judges purge, police.
I have friends who are Turkish.
Police purge, so you're talking thousands.
It's
thousands
a huge deal.
So, and when they say purge, you know, some of these guys are going to be thrown in jail. Others will be killed.
Or disappear.
And Erdogan will make, he will, you know, put on much stronger restrictions on the on everybody, everything. Just on the whole country in general. So he'll be able to, in a way, sort of run Turkey like this martial law or something, you know. And that effect for a NATO alliance and our own government and our own relationships is a problem. And the other thing too, because there's been a lot of discussion about NATO readiness and NATO capability. Turkey has a pretty big military.
The second largest in NATO?
Yeah, and they're actually pretty good. but you now have to question their readiness, their
How about willingness?
well, so it's beyond willingness. It's you know, somebody can direct somebody to do something, but it's really their ability to be able to do anything right now. So, you know, we're lucky enough to where nothing is at risk, and at least for now, you know. But our ability to count on them is definitely in question. And then the last thing on Turkey is, I think that for the U.S., from my perspective, we have to pay very close attention to how does Russia respond to all this, because Russia is one of they will dive right in if they can take advantage of a former U.S. relationship or a U.S. relationship that's on the rocks. Russia will jump right in, and they'll be ready to help out in any way.
Okay.
And they move a lot. Russia moves a lot faster than the United States does.
Okay, and you know that Turkey, that they're requesting Gulen, who's sitting here in Pennsylvania, for extradition, and if not, they said that they may try to come another way. Now, this is a scenario I've floated for a while, the idea of drone strikes, and I know we did talk about this, and Eric Holder had to go on the record saying we're not going to do that inside the United States. Right. But because we do go into countries that we're not necessarily at war with, like Yemen and Somalia, and we do use targeted drone strikes, I've been saying I think it's a matter of time before another country tries to do something like that. And this presents I know this is a theory.
That'd be the last time that country does that.
So that's your deal. So it's, you know, that's what a lot of people are, I mean, a lot of people email me and ask me this question. Yeah. Why are we able to drone strike people around the world? And then is it going to happen here? And is it, I mean, obviously, I know that the overflight, we'd see them, the drone would never make it.
I would say that, if you're thinking about, you know, if you're asking, will Turkey try something like that against Gulen? No, they don't have to. We might give them back. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what the policy decision is going to be.
Well, Kerry's already on record saying they're open.
Well, they want to hear, they want to see the evidence and all that kind of stuff. We'll see what happens. I would say that I think that. My reaction to it is, as I sit here today, I would say, no way if that we're going to send a guy. I mean, he wasn't there, so maybe he talked to somebody, but he wasn't there. I mean, so I would say no. And the other side is, you know, what you're talking about, which was just some type of targeted killing of this guy. You know, I mean, you know, look at what we just had in Baton Rouge. Look at what we just had in Dallas against law enforcement officers. So, yeah, I mean, it's not something that I would be. If it happened, I would not be surprised. But that's something where, you know, that's for the FBI, the law enforcement professionals to have to deal with, and Gulen for his own personal safety.
Yeah. Okay, last question. If Trump wins the presidency, where do you think your skills would fit best? Because I think he's going to tap you for some sort of position. You think it's DNI? You think you take Clapper's job? NSA? CIA? Or would you be comfortable over at the Pentagon?
Yeah, you'd have to ask Donald Trump.
Come on. You're qualified for all of those, are you not?
Yeah. I mean, I would just tell you that.
That's where your expertise lies.
Right now, my focus is on making sure that this country understands what's happening, and I have dove head first into the arena of you know, sort of the Donald Trump movement, which I believe in, because I can feel the shift ongoing in this country. And I'm not somebody who, you know, these parties can label me whatever they want to label me. But I've always said is I vote for leaders, and I vote for America. And so I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, we encourage everybody to read the book. It's a great read.
Yeah, it's gotten great feedback, gotten great reviews.
Short and to the point.
Yeah, and it's also, I think it's like right now, it's #1 Amazon bestseller for national security, and in the top, you know, 10, 20, I think, of like all books and, that are being sold today. So it's really gotten good reviews, which is
Good
nice.
book, I mean, obviously, I
Good.
read it
Well,
up,
thanks
so I
so much.
appreciate it.
Thanks, Kimberly.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it. Nice meeting you. Yep. All right, we're gonna
Would
get
you
going.
like him to sign the book for you?
Yeah.
Sure.
please.